Appalachian Genealogy presents Beyond the Plow, Decoding Ancestral Occupations in the 1880 Census.
Have you ever been there? You're staring at an old census record, and you see that one word next to your ancestor's name, farmer, laborer, maybe something like Cooper, and you just wonder, what did that really mean for their day-to-day life? Well, today, we're going to dive into exactly that. We're going to see how one single line in the 1880 census can unlock an entire family story, turning a simple job title into a rich, detailed narrative.
I love this quote because it just perfectly captures the feeling, doesn't it? The 1880 census isn't just a boring list of names. It really is a snapshot of a community in motion. It's like a window into the Appalachian region at this one specific moment in history, preserving the actual words people use to describe their place in the world. So let's unpack why this particular census is such a massive game changer for genealogists.
So what is it about this specific census that makes it so special? Well, in 1880, something big changed, and it gave us a much clearer window into the working lives of our ancestors.
For the very first time, census takers were given a brand new instruction: be specific. No more vague, generic labels. This was huge. This one change gives us this incredibly detailed, more textured portrait of the American workforce, especially in rural places like the Mountain South, the Appalachian region.
All right, so now that we have this amazing new level of detail, let's really paint a picture of the working landscape in the Appalachian region back in 1880. It was a world totally rooted in agriculture, for sure, but that's really only the beginning of the story.
Okay, so no surprise, the title farmer is everywhere. It absolutely dominates the records, with most families being anchored to the land. But, and this is so important, those farms could not function in a vacuum. The community was completely dependent on a whole network of other specialists. You know, the people filling in all these other little slices of the pie.
And even within farming, the distinctions are critical. Seeing farmer versus farm laborer on a census can send your research down two totally different paths. A farmer probably owned or at least managed land, right? That points you straight to land deeds and tax lists. A farm laborer, though, they often worked for wages, which might lead you to look for things like apprenticeship records or different family alliances.
And this brings us to one of the most important, and honestly one of the most frustrating entries you'll ever see: keeping house. This simple phrase hides a massive amount of absolutely vital economic work done by women. We're talking everything from spinning wool and preserving all the food for winter to acting as the community's midwives and healers. It's a huge reminder to always look beyond the official record. Now for the specialists. These are the folks who, while there were fewer of them than farmers, were the absolute backbone of daily life in the mountains. Their skills were completely indispensable. So, first up, the miller. The grist mill wasn't just a place to grind grain, it was the central hub for the entire community. Seriously, it's where you heard the news, you exchanged goods, you caught up on all the local gossip. And the miller himself? He had to have some serious mechanical know-how to keep that whole operation running smoothly.
Then you've got the teamster. You can think of them as the logistical lifeline of the mountains. These were the experts who navigated those rugged, often treacherous roads to haul goods, connecting isolated little communities to the bigger markets. Their job was absolutely essential for commerce and communication, a truly vital role.
And this is where you really see how all these jobs were interconnected. The cooper, for example, was the craftsman who made all that shipping possible in the first place. They built the barrels, the casks, needed to store and transport just about everything: apples, salted pork, whiskey, you name it. If you didn't have coopers, you didn't have trade. Simple as that.
And finally, the tanner. Theirs was a crucial, if famously smelly trade. They're the ones who produced all the leather needed for shoes, for the harnesses on the teamsters' horses, and for all kinds of tools used on the farm. A tanner's work was fundamental to keeping the entire local economy literally on its feet.
Okay, so this is all great, but what do you do with it? You found one of these occupations listed for your ancestor, now what? Let's get practical and talk about the actual steps you can take to turn that one little clue into a really compelling family story.
It's a really simple but incredibly powerful framework. First, you identify the occupation. Obvious, right? Second, you start brainstorming all the possible records that job might have created. And third, you just start following that paper trail, hunting down the evidence. Let's see how this works with a real example.
So we're going to look at a real-world case study. This is an ancestor listed simply as Miller in a tiny Appalachian county. And this, right here, is where the real detective work begins. Now just look at what that one word led to. Because he was a miller, researchers started digging. They checked county deed books, and bam, they found records of his water rights for the mill.
They scanned old local newspapers and found mentions of repairs and even accidents at the mill. And then they found his name in old merchant ledgers, buying things like brain sacks and spare parts.
So here's the point. By combining all of these different records, this incredible, multi-dimensional picture started to emerge. He wasn't just a guy who ground grain. He was a business owner, a property holder, and a central figure in the economic and social life of his entire community. His job title was the key that unlocked that whole story.
So let's just zoom back out for a second and really drive home the main takeaway here. Understanding an occupation is really the key to understanding your ancestors' entire world. An occupation is so much more than just a label. It's a direct clue. It tells you about their skills, their social standing, their economic status. It clues you into the daily reality that they lived in. It helps you understand their relationships, why they might have moved, and what their life was actually truly like.
And ultimately, that's the real magic here. When you dig into their work, you stop seeing your ancestors as just names on a page. You start to see them as real people, whose labor, whose skills, and whose knowledge literally built and sustained the communities that we studied today.
So I'll leave you with a question to think about. What's the most surprising or unexpected job you found in your own family tree? And more importantly, how did that one discovery completely change the way you saw that ancestor and their place in the world? Keep digging.
Thanks for joining us today. Like, follow, and share for more Appalachian history, stories, and genealogy. Visit us on the blog at www.appalachiangenealogy.com.